the goal of the Glassy project that we had in the upper Medway Creek sub-watershed was to set up a sub-watershed demonstration project where we can tie land use practices to the water quality. So on one half, we're working with farmers to change and improve land management practices, and on the other half, we're in the creek measuring the water quality to see if we can detect those changes. Well, the project was in the headwaters, so the very top end of Medway Creek sub-watershed, which the area comprised of about 40 landowners and 4,000 acres of farmland, and that all drains south down Medway Creek and into the Thames at the University of Western Ontario's property. So we were working with the small number of landowners in the upper part of Medway Creek, and we were advocating and working with them to adopt best management practices. And these ranged from permanent things like erosion control structures and planting tree windbreaks, but it also went towards year-to-year practices like planting cover crops or using conservation tillage to try and reduce erosion and any nutrient runoff that runs down and eventually gets into the creek. A unique part of this project was that we were able to collect so many samples from the creek, and that really gave us a great data set to work off of, and we learned a lot about the creek in a very short amount of time. From a few years of results, we're able to see trends in the water quality, and we're finding results that are consistent with other research across the province. Is that most of our phosphorus loads into the creek come in the non-growing season between about November to April, and they come in a few major events. So when we have these big storm events or big snow melts, that's when we see the majority of the phosphorus load getting to the creek. So through the Glassy program, we found that cover crops, out of the suite of BMPs that were offered to landowners, cover crops ended up being the least expensive project type that they could adopt, and typically has very few capital expenses involved. We also have some plot work, some research plots south of the City of London that show water quality coming off of slopes that have cover crops versus those that don't is much improved. So we can actually reduce the phosphorus concentration in water just by planting a cover crop which holds the soil and soaks up some of that nutrients in the water that would otherwise run off the slope and eventually reach a creek system. So from what we were seeing from the need for a winter practice that improves water quality and the research that shows that phosphorus can actually be reduced with cover crops, we're seeing cover crops as a future opportunity to test in this watershed. And it also has quite widespread applicability. There's not a lot of capital investment required for cover crops, and every type of farmer can somehow incorporate them into their rotation. So we think there's a lot of opportunity to test cover crops in this area going forward. So now that we have this water quality monitoring system up and running in the Medway Creek, we have the ability to test BMPs quite well. We have a lot of background data, and we know the area and we know the landowners. So it provides a playground to do some future testing for BMPs, and we're looking forward to the opportunities that will come from this sub-watershed project. The funding for Glassy was provided through the Growing Forward 2 program, which is a federal, provincial, and territorial initiative, and Glassy was delivered by the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association.